I always love listening to that intro. I love the ukulele. I love that it's a song written specifically for streaking by Lily. It just gets me pumped up every time.
I know. I love it too. And I love it in January because she talks about, in one of the lyrics, she talks about, set this New Year's resolution.
And then she says, you
already
broke it. And we're in the midst of New Year's resolutions right now being broken, because typically a New Year's resolution is about 3 weeks in when you give up on it altogether.
Is that what the statistical?
That's what the statistics say.
That's what they found that we statistically do.
You got it. Exactly. Well, welcome, fellow streakers. How are you? Happy Saturday. Wow. It's amazing that January is almost over.
Wow. It's speechless. I don't even know what to say.
Speechless in so many ways. This morning when we went on our run, we had quite the heavy topics to talk about this morning.
I know
we were
did.
Pondering all about life and what our life was moving toward and what it was that we were doing.
This close to solving most of the world's problems, and then just shy.
Just shy of it. It's like we reached for it and it moved like the rainbow that goes out of our sight. We were right there. And yet, no, it was gone.
Yep.
Couple of updates real quick. We had the app has now been released as far as the upgrade is concerned. And what that means is everyone has access to the community. How you access the community is on the app, there's a icon at the top. It's one of the hexagons that has the 3 little people on it. And those 3 little people, you touch that 3 little people icon and go in and find your friends. Now, if you can't find your friends, have them download the app and register, because everyone can register, and then you'll be able to find them and share a streak. How do you share a streak with them? Once you've put your streak in, you can press on, and there's 3 little dots now. You don't have to long hold now.
More.
Yeah, the more and so on is what I was always taught those 3 dots meant. ... You can press on that and share, and you'll see a list of your friends there, and you can share with them that specific streak. There have been so many. I've had people request that of me, and I've shared with them 3 or 4 streaks, and that's been so much fun. The fun is when I get a high five, and I've mentioned this before. It's the accolades. It's the celebration of continuing the streak.
Yes, and the fun of seeing other people's success, or like being like, oh, they added a new streak. I like that one. That's a good idea. So it's been fun. I love having friends.
So that brings us to our methodology moment, which is, remember that part of a streak is creating a community. Now, in the methodology, this took us a little while to get to as far as what was missing, but the community is something that is significant. And why would you say that community is significant for you?
That's so funny. I was going to ask you the same question.
Were you really?
I was going to be like, why is community important? Why is it that we can't just set a streak and keep a record of it? Why do we need a third law? So
the first thing that came to my mind, or when we originally started on All About the Community, at first I thought it was all about accountability. That I need external people to be accountable. However, as I've progressed in my streaking journey, now 5 years strong, right, almost 6 years strong in the streaking journey on several of the streaks, what I have recognized is that I enjoy the community to celebrate with me. Do you remember, okay, I want you to think back to your first marathon. And we were finishing up, and we were going down the last half mile. Mm-hmm. Do you remember how you felt as you ran into the area where their crowds were all waiting for everyone to finish? Do you remember how you felt?
I do, because the feeling beforehand. So I remember, and this is a fun contrast, I remember it was Van Winkle Expressway, which was a certain place in the marathon where there were no people. Nobody could spectate. There were no spectators. So it was just runners, and there were no cars. And it was very quiet and very lonely and head down, and you were just running through. Versus coming down into the city where we're getting ready to cross the finish line, and you come into these people waiting for you. And I loved it because I also, You always fix my microphone for me. People.
That's because I'm watching the levels.
No. I've had you come all the way upstairs and move my microphone
I know.
when I'm on a Zoom meeting.
It's one of my things.
It's
I'm
a
sorry.
thing. You
I
have
know.
a microphone
I have a
thing.
microphone thing. I know.
And the people are like, she was fine. I could hear her just fine.
No, I'm sorry.
But now you can hear me
It's a thing.
even better.
It's a thing. I know.
'Cause
I'm always
my
adjusting the
microphone-
levels.
You are.
You know what I need to do? I need to take a sound engineering course because I love the whole idea of the sound engineering.
You are great at it.
Well,
you are
thank
really
you. I
good.
appreciate
And I
that.
do appreciate you watching out for me and stuff. But now my microphone is in its perfect place. I'll
I'm
keep
sorry.
my head right
So
here.
she sits right across from me and we have a conversation. And this is how, we're just talking with each other. And
I'm right at
I'm
the
watching-
climax of
I'm
telling you
watching
how
the
I
levels.
feel.
I'm watching the levels and I'm like, it's got to be just a little closer.
And he can't contain himself. He can't stop from
I
his
can't.
little finger
I'm sorry, people.
pushing my microphone
I can't.
just
I know.
a little
Yeah,
bit
I know.
closer.
Which brings me to a little interesting
Are we gonna?
thought.
Can I tell him about my?
Yes, absolutely. You tell them about.
All I was gonna
because
say-
we were talking about community and how excited you were.
We were.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me because the community is what got me to run a marathon in the first place. So my change of heart was watching people cross this finish line and being so proud of these people that I don't even know.
Yeah.
Just feeling absolute joy for what they had accomplished, for complete strangers.
And this is where I wanted to be is the
So
celebration.
being on the other side, when
Yeah.
I crossed that finish line, feeling that support from other people, feeling like they're here cheering me on. They don't know me, but they're like, you did it. We're so proud of you. So that's what I've loved. I loved both sides of it. I loved sitting in the stands and watching these people accomplish this thing that I was just like, that is amazing. And I loved having worked hard and doing it myself and having people I don't even know and people I know. I mean, my family was there too, but there's also a lot of people that are like, you did it. That's so awesome. Congratulations.
I remember running with you, and I was so happy to be running with you. I was yelling to all the... She just fixed my microphone, ladies and gentlemen, right there.
Just fixing the microphone just a little bit. Oh, keep going. What were you saying?
I was saying...
Didn't mean to distract you. Continue on.
Such a liar. So we were running into this area where everyone was... It was the Gateway Mall because it was the Salt Lake City Marathon, and the Gateway Mall, all the people were up in the stores.
It's like two levels.
Yeah, it's
of
like two
stories
levels.
and
That's how I was...
balconies, kind of.
Yes,
for shopping.
exactly. Thank you for.
And I don't know
if
if the fountains were going, but in my memory, the fountains were
going
going.
and everything else. And I remember just feeling so proud as well because I had run the marathon the year before, and then this was our first marathon that we ran the whole thing together. And I just started shouting and I saying, "This is our first marathon!" And people started cheering and loud.
Yes.
And so what I wanted to get to is that's what I mean by community. Is the community is about celebration, not necessarily about accountability. Now, is accountability inherent in that? I think so, but sometimes the word accountability has a negative connotation. It's, I'm going to hold you accountable to this, rather than looking at it and saying, I'm going to celebrate with you your success.
Right.
And that in and of itself starts to have accountability. So creating the community, this is the other areas I looked at as we were studying Cal Ripken Jr., and his streak of 2,632 games consecutively played in a row. And when he broke the record of it was Lou Gehrig's record of 2,130 consecutive games played in a row. When he broke that record, I mean, the community was millions of people strong,
Right.
and everyone was celebrating with him. When I studied that, and when you and I talked about it, and as I've gone along, I've realized that the community is not about the accountability. The community is really about the celebration.
And what I've loved is that when you were talking about accountability, it's a little bit this extrinsic versus intrinsic. And so accountability kind of turns it into this extrinsic thing. You're being held accountable by somebody else. And there's this external force that's kind of being placed upon you to make you do something. Versus when you have a streak and you're holding yourself accountable to keeping that streak, it becomes an intrinsic thing. And then the community becomes, like you said, this opportunity to celebrate, which also becomes a very intrinsic motivating thing when you
Absolutely.
are celebrating with other people.
Absolutely.
And when you feel that celebration back, that's different than a feeling of, well, I'm going to be held accountable. Not that accountability isn't an important thing, but there is a little bit of a difference there in the way that it motivates.
I would say it's a big difference. I don't think it's a small difference. It's a big difference. And I didn't recognize it until we started to get along in our streaking years and seeing how much I enjoyed, and especially with the application where I get high fives from people, that simple high five, or now the app has celebrations. So whenever you complete a daily streak or a weekly streak, there's confetti and balloons. And
my favorite one is the one that squirts like Windex and then takes a sponge. Nice streak. I think I've said that before. It is my favorite animation.
Absolutely.
Whoever did that one.
Thank you.
Love it.
Which brings us to a moment. Okay, so that's our methodology moment, create a community. If you haven't created a community of one other person or several other people, do it and celebrate with them. And that's one of the things that we'll have in the application as we go along is more and more celebration and more opportunities to celebrate with people. That
community will continue to develop.
I love when people come up to me and say, I've been doing my streak for X number of days, and we celebrate together.
I know. I love that
It's fun
too.
because we laugh together because it's laughably simple, and then we celebrate together. Isn't it amazing how long you've been able to do that?
Yep. And it again, it's a boost. There is something motivating about somebody else being successful and me feeling, oh, I felt that success too. And I'm so excited for you because you're feeling it. It's very motivating for both people, I feel like.
So speaking of motivation, had a question from Mr. Chris McChesney this week. Yes?
Yes.
Chris, Mr. Execution McChesney. He wrote The 4 Disciplines of Execution. He is the guru on all things execution, and he's also one of our streakers. He wrote the foreword to the book and everything else. Now, he asked me a question this week. He said, when you start a streak, when you start it, so think about starting a new streak, he said, is there a point in time where you hit a lull, where it's a little more difficult to do the streak than maybe what it was when you started? And he said, have you guys researched that? Have you studied it?
So when he says a lull, he's saying a lull like you're not as enthusiastic to keep the streak alive, but not a lull like you just don't do it for a while and then you
Correct.
come back on.
The first way that you said that is that you're now struggling to keep the streak alive.
Hard.
It's hard. I'm fighting to keep the streak alive. And there's a couple of things that come immediately to mind. Now, I had an answer for him, because you and I have talked about this, but I'd like to explore this just a little bit as we go into it. So the first question that I have for you, and that I also have for myself as we go forward here, is have you ever struggled to keep a streak alive?
So that's a really good question. And I would say yes, in different ways. So when we first started streaking, there would be times that I would miss a streak. Oftentimes when I start a new streak, I don't feel like I hold that streak perfectly at first. It takes time to get that to be a part of my life. And that's part of what we talked about, that you could do it for 21 days and it's not going to be an quote unquote automatic habit. It's still a conscious choice. In other words, I can do it for a long time and
it's still something that
still
I need
has to be a conscious choice.
And it always will be. I mean, and that's one of the things we know. We talk about it a lot. A streak is not a habit. Habit is its own thing. It's automatic. You repeat it and it's automatic, and it's a small, very class of behaviors.
Right.
Streaks are a large class of behaviors. In fact, just a little side note on that, just before you continue answering. I was thinking about how people say we need to develop new habits. I think what they're really saying and what needs to go out there is we need to develop new streaks. And the reason why I say it that way is not just replacing habits with streaks. That's not what I'm doing. What they're saying is I need to bring something to a conscious level and be focused on repeating that thing over time. I would love to get to the place where I need to develop a couple of new streaks. In other words, I need to be conscious about my behavior in such a way that I'm keeping track of, I'm keeping a record of it. It's small, it's simple, I'm keeping a record of it, and I'm creating a community around it. I'm doing my streaks. Okay. Anyway, just a little side note. So go back to, have you ever struggled keeping a streak alive?
So the two areas that I think about if they're, when you hit a lull, because I guess I look at life and I think, isn't there pretty much everything in life that we hit? There's levels of excitement and enthusiasm around any number of things. And then you hit, what I would classify the doldrums. The wind has gone out of the sails. You're just kind of in sameness. And so I think a lull is a part of life. I think the difference, and maybe what he was asking, is two things. One, if you're really having to struggle to make it happen, have you made it too hard? Is it more of a goal? Is it something you're really having to reach for every day? And if it is, then it needs to have an end date, because you're reaching, you're stretching, you're pushing yourself beyond your regular capacity. You're not going to be able to sustain that all the time. You need to have a set period of time that I'm going to sustain this level of intensity and activity for this time, and then I'll have reached that and I'll be done. So that's the first thing, is that if you're hitting this lull, you need to examine your streak and say, have I made it a little too hard? Because if you've hit a certain time, you know what I mean? We can sustain things for a certain period of time, but if it's indefinite and we've made it really hard, you've set yourself up for failure, because we aren't meant to live at that level of sustained stretching all the time. It's meant to be for periods of time.
Can I riff in there?
Yeah,
I absolutely agree. And what I see you saying is exactly what I was thinking, is that the enthusiasm came because I'm going to do this really hard thing.
Yeah. I'm going
right
to be
in front.
amazing.
I'm going to be amazing, and I'm going to set this streak, and I'm going to be exercising 1 hour every single day, and it is going to be absolutely.
And it's going to happen this time. I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it
I've
because
got the level
because
of
it's
ambition and excitement.
Because it's a streak.
Yeah,
it's a streak, and I'm going to keep this streak alive. And you get about 3 weeks, or it's usually about 90 days. So this is what I told him.
Anywhere in the 90 days.
Anyway, in the 90-day realm, you're just like, I do not want to go out for an hour and exercise. What I look at is
you made it
too hard. Mm-hmm. It should be so simple that it's laughably simple. In other words, it's as simple as I put my walking shoes on.
Exactly.
And that's the streak I'm keeping alive. Or I walked outside, and that's how simple the streak is.
It has to be so laughably simple that people are like, "You really think that's going to make a difference?"
And here's
in your life?
reason why. Yeah, exactly. It causes a little bit of doubt as far as, is that really going to make a difference? And the answer is no, not if you do it inconsistently. But so what happens now is you've set this streak so hard that now you get 3-4 weeks into it, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and you're getting up into the 90-day realm. And you're like,
and it's hard because it requires that same level of enthusiasm that you had when you started. Mm-hmm. And the truth of life is that we have a lot of enthusiasm when we start something, anything new. It's exciting. It's new.
Right.
But sustained, we don't carry that level of enthusiasm through everything all the time in our life.
We
don't.
All.
And so you need something that you look at and you're like, I need it to be so simple that I don't need enthusiasm to sustain it. I need it to be so simple that if I can't sustain it, it's like, okay, seriously, I can do that. I can simply do this.
Right.
And then I can be done with it. I don't need enthusiasm. I don't need that high level of rah, rah. I don't need the pep rally. All I need is just a little, just go do it. I'm done. Move on. And then, so in that regard, do you hit the doldrums in that way? And I think, I think maybe we should expect sometimes there to be doldrums, but that's where the beauty of the streak comes in.
Can I be honest with you on this one? I don't think on any one of my streaks, when I've set them, and I'm looking at all of them that I keep active today, I've never hit doldrums. Not once. So
you haven't had a time. Well, I guess, so why? Why have you not?
So there's been times where I've been so tired, I'm like, do I really want to keep this streak alive? And I thought, it's so simple. There's no reason not to. And that's, and so it's like a little breath of wind that just keeps it going. I've never, and that's one of the things that I've been absolutely astounded with.
That's a really great way to say it. So all you need is this tiny little puff.
That was it. Exactly.
I did it. I don't have to move the whole boat.
No, I don't.
I just puffed a little puff and there we go. Sustained.
And that's been the amazing part for me. And so as you said it today, and as I was thinking about Chris's question, I thought, have I ever hit a doldrum, or have I ever hit a place where I felt a lull in my streaks? And I haven't. I honestly have not. And it's surprising to me right now that I'm saying it, because as I look back over all the streaks that we've had, from running or walking at least 1 mile 6 days a week, to reading one paragraph, to writing one sentence, to studying one development card. For you, have you ever, since you started taking your vitamins, your one vitamin, I'm going to take one iron pill, have you ever had a lull in that?
And I guess, no,
You haven't?
no.
Not ever.
I've had a time where I question and I'd be like, oh, am I going to do this? And then I look at myself and I'm like, why would I not?
It's so easy.
All I have
it's so
to do
simple.
is
Why
just-
don't I just do it?
Yeah, just simply do this part.
And that consistency is crazy, amazing, and effective when you get that type of consistency going and just saying, I'm going to keep doing this every single day. And which leads us to why you keep a record on it is
Right.
because, look, I have been doing this for 1,785 days. I'm going to keep going.
I'm going to keep going. Just keep on going.
Because it just, so as I look at it, as he asked that question, the first thing that comes to my mind is, how hard is it?
Yeah. How hard is it?
It's probably too hard.
Yep. It needs to be so simple that you just can do it.
Uh-huh.
Just a tiny little.
So I thought of a second thing. What?
I keep saying just. I'm trying to
Oh.
replace just with simply because I feel like the word just discounts it. And so that's what I was noticing. I'm like, you just do it. Simply do it.
I love that. And that's what we talked about, because we were talking last time about the word just and how it's a bad word because it does discount what it is that you're doing. It's not that you're just doing something. You're doing it, and you're doing the simple part of it.
You're doing it simply
I was
and
actually
consistently.
even thinking about simply, and I'm like, does simply discount it as well?
I don't think so.
You know what I mean?
Or maybe that's the whole thing that we're having to get over is this idea that because it's small, it doesn't count because we don't believe we're going to be consistent.
Right.
I think that therein is the struggle we've had so many times
And I think I
in our
still
own
struggle
lives
with
where
that.
where we aren't consistent, that's our belief. Well, we're not going to be consistent, so it's got to be bigger if it's going
Right.
to. But
And I
if
think
we
that's
can
why
be consistent, when we are consistent, when we do those things every single time,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I'm like,
Do
I
you
can't.
still find yourself not believing, even after 5 years of streaking,
Yes.
that you've actually accomplished everything you have with a simple thing like writing at least
I
one
do-
sentence in your journal?
Two things I'm amazed by. Amazed that I'm
We're coming
still
up on the end.
surprised.
This is it.
Okay, real quick. I'm amazed that I'm still surprised what I can accomplish by doing my simple streak, and amazed how hard it is for me when I start a new one to believe, even after having so much success, I still have to tell myself the consistency is going to pay off. Simply do it.
Simply do it. I'm going to tell you reason number 2 that I thought about in our next podcast.
Okay, perfect.
It's a good one. I think that'll be great. Hey, thanks everyone for listening in today. We've enjoyed the conversation. We look forward to talking with you again. If you have something, a question, or a streak you'd like to share with us, let us know at Jeffrey, Jeffrey, at streakingmastery.com, or
And Jamie, Jami, at streakingmastery.com.
you can also sign up on our website at www.streakingmastery.com. Until we talk again,
Keep streaking.
keep streaking.
Do one push up, become a better you. It's the small and simple things that make you grow into what you're hoping. You're in a hurry, don't even worry. It's too simple not to do. It's the little things that